You know that moment. Saturday morning, bathroom door closed, and you're on your knees in front of the toilet bowl with a brush in one hand and a spray bottle in the other. Your shoulder burns from scrubbing. Your knuckles are white, and that rust-colored ring beneath the rim has not moved, not a shade lighter, not a millimeter thinner. Your chest tightens because somewhere in the back of your skull, a voice is whispering that you are failing at the most basic task a functioning adult is supposed to handle: keeping a clean home. Your jaw clenches, you spray again, you scrub harder, nothing. And then the thought arrives, the one that makes your stomach drop. Maybe the house is just too far gone. Maybe you let it get this bad. That feeling, that hot flush of shame crawling up the back of your neck while you stare at a stain, that was engineered. Not by accident, not by neglect, by design. $50 billion a year flows into an industry whose entire revenue model depends on you standing in that bathroom feeling exactly that helpless. Exactly that. Often. A product that solves your problem permanently is not a product. It is a threat. It collapses the repurchase cycle. It kills the subscription logic hiding underneath every bright label on every shelf you've ever scanned in desperation at the hardware store. So the solution gets buried, not discontinued. Buried, pushed out of your awareness. With the same precision a con artist uses to keep a mark looking at the wrong hand. The ancient Romans used it on their stone basins. Benedictine monks in 1163 scraped it from the insides of oak wine barrels beneath a French abbey, ground it to powder, and watched it dissolve mineral deposits that had resisted decades of labor. The United States military restored corroded field equipment with it during the Second World War. Every major cleaning corporation on Earth today knows its name, knows its mechanism, and has made a calculated decision to never let it appear anywhere near their marketing materials. The compound costs $2. It sits in your kitchen cabinet right now, labeled as a baking ingredient and visible in plain sight. Its chemical name is potassium bitartrate. What it does to rust, calcium scale, and oxidized porcelain is not cleaning in any sense. The industry wants you to understand it is a targeted chemical reaction, irreversible and precise. And the reason your body has been tensing over that bathroom stain every weekend for years is because someone decided your ignorance was worth more than your dignity. That reaction begins the moment this powder meets water, because cream of tartar is a mild but highly effective acid with a pH sitting right around 3.5, and when it contacts those mineral compounds bonded to your surfaces, something very specific starts to happen. Here's what the industry actually did to you. They watched you kneel on cold tile, arm burning from the shoulder down, scrubbing a ring that has not moved in 3 years. They watched you switch brands. They watched you try the blue gel, then the foaming spray, then the one with the microcrystals that promise deep penetration. They watched you spend $11, then $14, then $19, on a bottle that smells like a chemical plant and still leaves that faint orange crescent mocking you from under the rim. And they designed it that way. Not by oversight, by quarterly earnings logic. Think about what actually happens when you spray that commercial cleaner onto a porcelain surface. The abrasive formula, the one with the microparticles they market as advanced scrubbing technology, physically gouges the glaze. Microscopic trenches open across the ceramic. You cannot see them. You cannot feel them with your fingertip. But mineral-rich water finds them immediately. Calcium carbonate settles into those grooves like sediment filling a canyon. Iron oxide bonds deeper than it ever could on an undamaged surface. You scrub harder next time. The grooves widen. The stain returns faster. You buy another bottle. That is not a cleaning product. That is a subscription trap wearing a label. You have 3 enemies living on your porcelain right now, and not one of them is mysterious. The white calcium crust around your faucet base. The rust-colored iron ring that creeps beneath the waterline overnight. The dark silicate film that colonizes your grout and makes a 2-year-old bathroom look 15 years neglected. You know exactly which one you stare at. You know which one made you close the bathroom door before guests arrived last Thanksgiving. You know which one made you Google replace toilet at midnight because you believe the surface itself was ruined beyond recovery. It was never ruined. The deposit was always soluble. The chemistry to dissolve it has existed since French monks used it on cathedral limestone in the 12th century. By 1861, Mrs. Beeton published it as standard protocol for the wealthiest households in the British Empire. The Victorians, the most status-obsessed civilization in modern memory, trusted a single compound to protect porcelain that cost more per unit than most furniture. That compound costs you $2 today. And the reason you have never reached for it is not ignorance. It is because $50 billion a year depends on you reaching for something else instead. So the stain stays, and you stay on your knees. And the cycle keeps turning, not because the problem is hard, but because the solution was deliberately priced out of your awareness and buried under 7 decades of marketing noise. The chemistry never changed. What changed was who controlled the conversation about it. You stood there last Tuesday morning, or maybe it was a Saturday. Doesn't matter. You stood in front of that toilet bowl with a brush in one hand and a spray bottle in the other, and you scrubbed. You scrubbed until your shoulder burned and your knuckles whitened against the handle, and when you stepped back, the ring was still there. That rust-colored ghost under the rim mocking you, and somewhere in the back of your skull, a voice whispered what it always whispers. You are not cleaning hard enough. You are not buying the right product. You are doing something wrong. That voice does not belong to you. It was installed. Every person watching this right now has lived some version of that moment. The dark mineral film on the shower floor that makes you feel like your home is dirty no matter how many hours you spend on your knees. The orange stain around the drain that you hide when guests come over. The quiet shame of a bathroom that never looks the way it does in the commercial, despite owning every product the commercial told you to buy. You thought you were alone in that failure. You were not. You were standing in a line that stretches back 70 years, millions deep, every single person holding the same inadequate spray bottle, feeling the same private embarrassment, blaming themselves for a problem that was solved before they were born. Here is what nobody in that line was ever told. The chemistry that eliminates those stains operates at a pH of 3.5, tartrate ions, chelate iron atoms, and dissolve calcium carbonate on contact. No scrubbing required, no repeat purchase necessary. A $2 bag of powder from the baking aisle does in 20 minutes what no product under your sink was ever designed to do. Not because those products failed, because they succeeded. They succeeded at keeping the problem alive. Just enough to bring you back next month, credit card in hand, shame still warm in your chest. The cleaning industry does not sell clean surfaces. It sells the feeling of trying. It sells you one application cycle of partial results, so the stain fades just enough to make you believe the next bottle might finish the job. That elegant cruelty is not a defect in the system. It is the system. And every time you blamed your technique, every time you switched brands hoping this one would finally work, you were responding exactly the way 70 years of engineered inadequacy trained you to respond. You were never bad at cleaning. You were perfect at being a customer. And the fact that a naturally buffered acid, too cheap to patent and too effective to advertise, sat on grocery shelves this entire time, while you knelt on cold tile feeling like a failure, that is not an accident of chemistry. That is the architecture of a $50 billion industry that needs your bathroom to stay just dirty enough to keep the register ringing. Flip the label on any limescale remover sold in the European Union. Right there in regulated print, you will find tartaric acid or potassium bitartrate listed among the primary active compounds. The manufacturers printed it themselves. They had to. European disclosure law forced their hand, and that single line of text on the back of a bottle tells you everything about how this suppression actually operates. It is not a conspiracy of silence. It is a conspiracy of vocabulary. In 1958, the Federal Hazardous Substances Act handed cleaning manufacturers a gift they never gave back. The law allowed them to list ingredients under broad category descriptions, instead of specific chemical names. Overnight, potassium bitartrate stopped being cream of tartar on a product label. It became descaling agent. It became mineral acid compound. It became whatever proprietary language the marketing department decided would prevent you from walking 10 feet to the baking aisle and buying the same molecule for $2. The price multiplied by 20. The bottle got a trigger nozzle and a television budget. That regulatory loophole built an empire. $8 billion by 1975 in the United States alone. $30 billion globally by the turn of the century. North of $50 billion today. Every single dollar contingent on one condition: that you never make the connection between the powder in your pantry and the spray in your cleaning caddy. The formulation scientists know. The regulatory chemists filing safety data sheets know. The restoration professionals pulling iron stains out of 100-year-old clawfoot tubs for $5 in materials. No. DIY porcelain restorers have passed this around for decades, like a trade secret that was never actually secret. They strip staining that professional shops charge hundreds to address in a single afternoon with a paste that costs less than a cup of coffee. The knowledge did not vanish. It got priced out of your field of vision. It retreated into communities too small and too specialized for a $50 billion marketing apparatus to bother neutralizing. Meanwhile, you kept reaching past the $2 bag toward the $12 bottle containing its diluted ghost, because nobody in that aisle ever told you they were the same thing. That silence was not accidental. It was the entire business model. And when researchers finally put numbers to it, the results confirmed what the industry had been quietly exploiting for 7 decades. So here is your defense protocol, and it will feel almost offensive in its simplicity. That feeling, that disbelief, that small voice whispering, "This cannot possibly work," that is the residue of 7 decades of engineered learned helplessness still living in your nervous system. Acknowledge it, then override it. Walk into any grocery store, find the baking aisle, pick up a container of food-grade cream of tartar. It weighs 100 grams. It costs somewhere between $1.50 and $3. You're now holding enough chemical ammunition to treat every bathroom surface in your home multiple times over. The industry spent billions making sure you would never reach for this shelf. You just reached for it anyway. That is what boundary reclamation looks like in practice. The application is deliberately unspectacular. 2 tablespoons of the powder mixed with warm water until it forms a paste, roughly the consistency of toothpaste. You spread it onto the mineral deposits around your faucets, across your shower walls, inside the toilet bowl, around the drain openings. Use a cloth, an old toothbrush, your bare fingers. It does not matter. There's nothing in this paste that requires gloves, ventilation, or protective equipment. You're not scrubbing. You're not grinding the stain away through brute mechanical force the way every commercial product trained you to believe was necessary. You're placing a chemical agent in direct contact with calcium carbonate and iron oxide, and you are letting tartaric acid do what it has done since the 12th century. You walk away. 15 minutes for moderate buildup, 30 minutes for heavier deposits, up to 1 hour for the kind of staining that made you believe the surface itself was permanently ruined. During that window, the tartrate ion is converting insoluble mineral scale into soluble salts. No abrasion, no surface damage, no glaze erosion. When you return, a gentle scrub and warm rinse reveals porcelain that looks the way it did before. The industry convinced you it was beyond saving. For severe cases, 1 repeat application finishes the job entirely. This is not a hack. This is not a workaround. This is the original chemistry, older than every brand name in your cabinet, exposed and returned to your hands. And for rust stains, specifically, there's 1 modification that pushes the reaction even harder. That modification is the one you already made the moment you stayed through this entire breakdown. You changed the sequence. You looked at the mechanism before you looked at the product. And that single inversion, seeing the architecture before the advertisement, is something no brand budget on earth can reverse once it happens inside your nervous system. Think about what just shifted. Last Saturday morning, you were standing in front of a toilet rim stain with a spray bottle engineered to fail slowly enough that you would blame yourself before you blamed the formula. You were performing a ritual designed in a boardroom, not a laboratory. And the feeling you had, that quiet frustration, that sense of being slightly stupid for not being able to solve something so basic, that was not incompetence. That was the intended emotional output of a system that needs you uncertain. Uncertainty is the purchase trigger. Confidence is the subscription killer. Now hold both versions of yourself in your mind at the same time. The one reaching for the branded bottle because the label used the word at professional strength in a font that mimics authority. And the one who now knows that monks in 1163 were scraping tartaric crust from fermentation barrels and solving the identical chemical problem for 0 cost, with 0 confusion, because no one had yet built a $50 billion incentive to make them forget. You're not choosing between 2 cleaning methods. You're choosing between 2 identities. One operates inside a dependency loop, where every solved problem must be resold to you next month. The other operates from a position so simple, it feels almost insulting. Acid dissolves mineral deposits. $2, 20 minutes. The same result an entire industry spent decades hiding behind proprietary trade names and marketing language, calibrated to keep you standing in that aisle one more time. The knowledge never disappeared. It was priced out of your peripheral vision. It was buried under the exact psychological architecture we just dissected together, the same architecture that keeps people trapped in relationships, jobs, and belief systems that require their confusion to survive. So here is your only real decision. Not which paste to mix, not which surface to treat first. The decision is whether you keep allowing systems, any system, to manufacture your uncertainty for profit. Because now you have seen the wiring.